Okay, I just wanted to kind of show you this laid out so that it would make more sense. So, I have all of my books out. All right, so this is the Form 2 Language Arts book. Let's see here. I'm going to flip back to page 1. All right, so page 1, the very first week, their copy work. So the copy work is done over the whole week. Well, like 4 days, because on the 5th day, I would say 3 or 4 days. It depends on how many days you're going to homeschool. So if you're going to homeschool 5 days a week, they would have 4 days to write this, and then you would do the dictation. But if not, if you're going to homeschool 4 days, you would have your 12-year-old go ahead and copy that in 3 days, and then on the 4th day do a dictation. So the Charlotte Mason way is you use your copy work to pull spelling words, and you don't do that, the kids do. And this is something we've been doing for a long time. So usually what I will do with them is I will read read the passage with them the first day. And then they will pick whatever words are like really hard. Maybe it's population. Population is kind of a hard word, or responsibility, and variably. So they will take whatever words they think are hard, and I usually have them highlight them, and then they copy them down into this list. And this is how they work through their quote-unquote spelling words. But then it's not me giving them words, it's them writing the words. And sometimes it's a word where maybe they'll end up perils. That's not like a really difficult word, but maybe that's just a word that they haven't, I don't know, they don't know what is a peril. So maybe they're going to do perils. That's how they study words. So they'll start by making their list. The next day, they'll cover it and write it. And then the next day, they'll rewrite it if needed. And so it just says, continue to practice these words for the remainder of the week using the methods described in the introduction. And she has a whole introduction on how to do this. Then another day, on day 2, they're going to draw a picture of Teddy Roosevelt. And where are they getting all this Teddy Roosevelt? So they have the copy work is a Teddy Roosevelt inaugural speech. They're going to draw a picture of Teddy Roosevelt. They're going to write about Teddy Roosevelt, describing the picture of what's happening in the picture. And then there is a grammar focus here. So I feel like, I know for Form 3, it's kind of like parsing sentences, so just sentence labeling essentially. So let's see. This is talking about Alexander Graham Bell. Let's see, and sentence arrangement. In the following, tell which are sentences and which are not. So they're going to go through that and tell me what is a sentence and what is not a sentence. Orally use the following words in a sentence. And thank goodness I have 2 kids in this book, so they'll be able to do this on their own. We'll do this together. We'll talk about kinds of sentences. And that's all right here. And then they'll go through and name the kinds of sentences. And then day 4, they'll have a grammar focus. So orally change these declarative sentences to interrogative sentences. So they'll do that with me. And then orally answer these interrogative sentences with a declarative sentence. There you go. And then write each kind of sentence. So they'll write a declarative, an imperative, exclamatory, and interrogative. And then day 5 is your dictation day. And, that's going to come from your copy work. So you will read this little by little while they write down their dictation on the dictation page. And Julia explains how to do that in let's see, in the very beginning of this book. Now, the reason they're doing all the Teddy Roosevelt things is because in your history, so if you go over here to A Gentle Feast, week 1, and you look at Form 2, it says American/World History. So day 1, day 2, day 3, you're reading America's Story. I'm sorry, the first 2 days you're reading America's Story, and then day 3 you're reading Kids at Work. And then day 4 is actually Famous Men of the Middle Ages. So that's where you're pulling in your world history. So this is America's Story. So chapter 1, we're reading about Teddy Roosevelt. And I really like this book because there's so many good pictures. And it has a little timeline in here. So we're reading about this every day. And we're reading about New York City. So that is that. We're going to read chapter 1 of America's Story. Sorry. Chapter 1 of America's Story. So we're going to read all of that. And we're going to talk about New York City. And we're going to talk about Teddy Roosevelt and who he was and all the things that he did. Okay. Now, if you go back to your Gentle Feast guide, you're asking about the family style learning. So that's what your Form 2, that's what your big kids, or your big kid, your 12-year-old will be learning. If you go down here to the Form 1 column, you're going to be reading If You Lived 100 Years Ago with your kindergartner. And it looks like this. It's just a little scholastic book. And it says just work through several questions each day as your child shows interest. And the questions are really short. So here's the intro, and it's all about New York and what was going on in New York in the 1890s. So, for instance, who lived in New York City? Where did the poor people live? And you would just read this in small chunks. Where did the rich, or middle class and rich live? And then they talk about that. Okay, so that is, where did people sleep? Were there bathrooms in the tenements? So all of that is happening. So that's learning about New York in the 1890s. And then you can go down to geography. So we are combining geography. I am not doing Form 1 geography. And your littles are so little, I wouldn't even sweat geography this year. So I would let your big do that, but man, I wouldn't even touch geography with your little bitties at all. I wouldn't touch those geography until your little bitties are like 7. And then literature, this is where your 12-year-old would read her Anne of Green Gables. So week 1, she would read chapters 1 through 4. So 1 through 4. My friend has a son, and he didn't want to read Anne of Green Gables, so he's reading Young Fu, chapters 1 through 3. My boys actually don't mind reading Anne of Green Gables because she's a little bit feisty, and like, I don't know, they just think that she's really funny. So they're going to be reading Anne of Green Gables. And that, while they're doing that, that's an independent thing. So they'll read for like, I want to say it's like 20 minutes, and then do a 10-minute narration, or have 10 minutes to work on a narration of that, all independently. That's where you are doing maybe a reading lesson or a phonics lesson. So Julie has these next lessons in 100 gentle, next lesson in 100 gentle lessons, or choice from reader's list. And then you would do a little bit of, it would be chapter 1, you would read aloud, Meet Theodore Roosevelt. So your little bitties are going to be getting the Meet Theodore Roosevelt. And this is like, these things are really more on their level. Let's see. So we're doing this as a family because I just think that's easy. I don't know. So we'll do that. We'll do this during morning time. Or, I'm sorry, with breakfast. The Form 1 read-alouds we do during breakfast. And my big kids can actually read those while I get breakfast ready. Okay, so science. Science, they don't do any science, but they'll just join in and they'll listen and probably play or do puzzles on the ground. You can see, like, usually we're sitting on the couch and they're right there, and I have books and puzzles and all the things, dollhouses all in there, and I have more like quiet time toys underneath there. So they usually just play here while we read our big kid literature, and they just listen. I don't know. It doesn't always work well because sometimes they're really loud and I just send them upstairs, but most of the time that's what we do. So we'll read the Marie Curie book in small chunks, and it's for kids. My friend just finished it with her kids, and they're little. I want to say 8 and like 4 and 2. Of course, the 2-year-old didn't listen, but the 8 and the 4-year-old actually enjoyed it in very small chunks. So that's that. And then you do kitchen experiments start sometime. Here it has all about the wonders of chemistry, chapter 1. But at some point you will do, I don't remember which week, but you'll actually start experiments. And then I guess your big kid, your 12-year-old, will also be, this is what she'll do. So your little can just sit underfoot or just do the experiments with you whenever it's time to do experiments. Natural history, so this is like your nature study. While my big kids do that independently, while they're reading their Christian Liberty nature reader, and maybe like drawing me a picture afterwards. So they'll read for so many minutes, and then after they're done reading, then they will stop and draw a picture of what they just read. And while they're doing that, I'm going to be reading Among the Pond People with my little kids. Let's see, we're not doing citizenship at all. We're going to do a very, very light Spanish. We're not doing any Latin at all. We will do math, but we are not adding in practical geometry because we're just not going to do that. We are doing good just to get 4 math lessons done a week. The folk song, we're not doing solfa, but the folk song and foreign language song, we're adding into our morning time routine, so I'll show you what that is in a minute. And then brush drawing is like what we'll do during tea time. So while after lunch, we'll come back to the table, and we've actually read All of a Kind Family. And All of a Kind Family, we've actually read this book twice, so we're going to do Railway Children. But if it's your first time reading All of a Kind Family, it is one of our family favorites, and I know that my kids would say, let's just read it again, but we've literally read it like 2 years in a row. And it's about a family, like in the early 1900s, that is growing up in New York City. And oh my gosh, it is just like our most favorite. So there you go, that wraps that all together. And then it kind of breaks down here. You're going to do a handicraft one day. Let's see. Well, here you'll do poetry, and then you do some sort of work, like household chores, gardening, cooking, whatever. One day you'll do drawing, another day you'll do nature journaling. So they kind of have it broken down. So your day 5 is more of like your nature study and tea time, where and tea time is like super informal. So it's having cookies and maybe a glass of water or some milk or whatever. It's just it's time where you come back together. There could be pretzel rods, I don't know, popcorn. It's just a time to come back together, talk about your day for a few minutes, end with a family read aloud, and work on a form of like drawing or journaling or handicraft while you're listening to mom read. So that's that. And actually, that's the second week morning time. But morning time looks like this in her, in here in her guide. So you're going to read Romans chapter 1. Let's see. You'll either do a picture or composer study. We're learning about Pablo Picasso. And if you didn't want to learn about Picasso, you can learn about Grandma Moses. So that is that. And it's broken down even more in her morning time guide. I'm sorry, I know this is kind of long. Let's see. Sorry for the long video, but hopefully this is connecting the dots a little bit better for you. Now, as far as the little kids go, I have never used Julia Ross's reading, like teaching to read program. I've used Teaching Your Kids to Read in 100 Easy Lessons and, something else, I don't know. But I've never used her specific reading program. I could tell you what I use if you want to know. Okay, so morning time term 1, and this is going to be like everything for all 12 weeks. So you have your term 1 Bible memory passage, so we'll work on scripture memory. And if you want to know how we do scripture memory, I can show you that. These are all of the entire term plans. This is 12 weeks of plans. So if you look right here, it has everything broken down by week 1. Week 1, this is everything that you need to do. And then, so this is just a little bit of a visual of all the things that you're going to do for week 1. And morning time is really quick. So even though this looks like, oh my gosh, this is like so much stuff, it's really not. You'll be able to get through it really quick. So included in that, we have fables and hero tales. So like the little kids are, well, actually, yeah, I guess the little kids, I don't know. It says Rutabaga Story, Story 1, and then, Form 1. And then Form 2, The Wright Brothers. Form 3, Gifted Hands. And I'll show you kind of how we're going to do that, because I have a Form 1, a Form 2, and a Form 3. So this is like where I had to get really creative and pick like what I wanted to do. But that is what that looks like. There is your hymn for your hymn study, and then she has a whole YouTube list and a Spotify list of everything. Here are recitations after a bath. So the after a bath, when you do have a big kid, like a 6, 7-year-old, that is actually the copy work. So we're learning this poem during our morning time, and then look, that's your copy work for the week for your 7-year-old. And that's where this is the great thing about the littles. You practice like, okay, we're gonna look at these words. They come from this passage, so they make sense. There's some context to them. And we're gonna do those all week long. We're going to write about taking a bath. We're going to draw a picture of our bathtub in our house. We have a phonics focus, so we're gonna learn about the Y, saying I or E, and then check that out. Dictation day 5. This is called French dictation. So it's where some of the words are left blank, but they have some words, and this is how they begin doing dictation in Form 1. And then in Form 2, they move on to, doing it, just writing all the things by themselves. And then look at that, week 2. The Rutabaga, it's taken from the Rutabaga Tales. So Form 1 reading and Form 1 copy work all coincide with the reading. Same thing with the Form 2. Okay, so that was kind of a sidetrack, but I just wanted to show you and draw the line so you see the parallels. So here's all the recitation, and this is for like every single form. So, and Carl Sandburg, he was a poet, but he was also an author. So where your bigger kids are learning his poetry, your little kids are going to be doing his fables or fairy tales about the Rutabaga stories. Okay, sorry, I'm really just trying to like explain all the things. This is super cool. So there are links to a whole bunch of different things when you purchase a Gentle Feast, and there are like videos and things like that that she's put together. So there's composer study and artist study, and you only do those like once a week, but all of your art is in here for the entire term. So you're studying Picasso and you're gonna look at a different picture each week. And then here's more poetry. So one is recitation, and then you have poetry that you're just studying. I think you do a different poem every single week. And then form 2. And the pictures are really beautiful in here. So I hope this is making sense. Okay, so that is that. I do want to show you, let's see. Let me show you this really quick. Well, I had the book list printed so that I could just have a visual of what books we're supposed to, I don't know, it's just good to have that. It made it easier. Because when I was looking at books, I was trying to figure out like, oh, is this the right book? I don't know. Okay, this year I also made this little planner, and I think you probably saw it on my live, but let me get back here. Okay. Notes. So this little section, at the end of every 12 weeks, you do exam questions. I won't even go there today, but your exams are not like an actual exam like what we had in school. It's asking questions based on what they've learned, and she actually has those written into this guide. So that's exam week for form 3, or not form 3, term 3. So I'll just show it to you really fast. So term 1 exam week, this is what that looks like. She gives you lots of ideas. So recite poetry, state their Bible memory verse, sing songs, display drawings or nature journals and handicrafts, have a special dessert, and then there are also, see appendix, that's where it is. That's narration. Let's see, here we go, exam templates. So a form 1, when you have like a first grader, that is what their exam would look like. For your 12-year-old, this is what it would look like. So you would work through, this would take probably, exams usually take, I want to say all week, and you just work through a few things a day. And usually what I've seen are moms have like a giant piece of butcher paper laid out on the table, and it's like one per kid. They'll lay it out, and then you'll draw and tell and write. So tell the story of blank. So you'll pick a Bible story, and they'll tell you the story of that. Give an account of blank from whatever Bible story you're reading. I think it was Romans. Describe blank. So you would just fill in whatever you're reading in Romans. Copy a passage in the neatest handwriting. So you would give them a passage, and they would write that on that big piece of butcher paper. Write 4 lines of poetry from memory. So the recitation, that is where that's going to come from. That's what they're going to be like studying. A dictation, so they would do a dictation. It says unprepared, so I would think that it would just be a piece of dictation that we had already done, but we didn't prepare for it all week. Composition, describe a favorite scene, tell a story about, so they would write that. And obviously there's no way that could all be done in a day. Parse a sentence, make sentences that show understanding of parts of speech, tell the story of whoever. The first term we're reading Ben Carson's Gifted Hands, so she would tell the story of Ben Carson. Oh, actually, that's my form 3, but that's just an example, sorry. So we're not doing the citizenship, but we could work through this. Geography, And then the natural history. So this is what an exam looks like, and they literally take several days per student, but it's not like a true, false, multiple choice. It's telling what you know. And that's what you've done for 12 weeks. So by the time you end 12 weeks, like, they're going to know that. We're not doing drill. Let's see. They should be able to do everything else. So 3 wildflowers or nature topic. So we've learned about frogs. So we would talk about frogs. Tell me 3 things about frogs. Anyway, describe your favorite painting that Picasso did. So it's really kind of cool. And then foreign language, obviously we're not doing the Latin. We're not going to conjugate any verbs or anything. I don't even think that we'll get into translation, because really we're just going to be doing Duolingo. So it's going to be whatever Duolingo does. So we wouldn't even do foreign language in our exams. So I really hope that helps. And then science, describe 2 experiments, explain how blank works. So by the time we're done, they will know that, like, that stuff. So that is that. And then, I'm sorry, like, sidetrack, but I'm really hoping that this is helpful. So you can write that stuff in there. You cannot. I mean, everything is pretty laid out, but what I really wanted to show you is cycle 4, sorry, because I just want you to know what you're getting into. So here's a little bit of, like, what we were planning on doing together and separate. I have all of our Bible reading here. Let's see. Okay, this is what I wanted to show you. I felt like this was very, very helpful. So this is just another breakdown of what you're doing in your lower form, term 1, weeks 1 through 6. There's kind of everything. And then what I'm going to do, I mean, it's literally the same thing as this guide. But what you're going to do is take that. So I'll take my guide. Oh my goodness, I'll get there eventually. And I will chart out where I'm going to do everything. Yes, Romans. Okay, I'm going to chart out where I'm going to do everything. In here. So I'll write down what we do every day in my actual calendar. Let's see. But you can see week 1, we're doing frogs for nature study. Week 2, seasonal pond study, and then catfish, dragonflies, cattails, fall webs. Anyway, so they also have these. There's also sample questions for the forms. All of our science, I like this too. She has a printable. There's so much stuff resource-wise that you get when you purchase this. A list of science experiment materials. And then it's even, someone went in, a mom went in, oh, it's not on here. And she broke it down by day, which I have that, I don't even know. It's somewhere around here. So I have everything broken down by day, so I can, or broken down by experiment. And then for our schedule, sorry, I'm trying to get to our schedule, which should be up here. There it is. There we go. This is a pie in the sky schedule. We will probably not be able to stick to this, but this is my goal. So there are a few things that I'm going to pre-record or read in the car, and that's our recitation poetry and our hymn study passages, and we'll listen to those when we are in the car. We'll also listen to like our different types of songs, like our folk songs and things like that in the car. So if you see here, get their family schedule, Form 1, for 5 minutes, we're going to, while I'm making breakfast, my bigs are going to be reading, or a big will read, I guess they'll take turns, reading our history picture book. And then, so that would be week 1, that would be that Teddy Roosevelt book. So they'll read part of that Teddy Roosevelt book. And then Tuesday during breakfast, we're just like literally rotating through these different things. We'll read our fable or hero tale. But you can kind of see, here's an overview of what we're doing. So we'll eat breakfast, and then after breakfast, we'll break and do our chores maybe. I don't actually know. It's kind of like, you never know. So then we'll get together, and this is where that beauty loop is, our morning time. We'll do Bible reading and scripture memory. We'll do our picture composer study, whatever we're looking at, hymn study, and we'll do, I said 10 minutes of foreign language. I'm literally thinking like we're going to watch a few YouTube videos because our kids just love these. Then we'll take a quick break and transition, and they'll start, I think they'll probably start with math because it's the easiest. I'm not sure. They'll do one of these first. If they start with our language arts packet, that's pretty independent. Minus the Monday where I help them read through the passage and write down their words. But for the rest of the week, it's semi-independent, and I can work with the littler kids. Math is always a good place to start. So this is not a hard and fast. You have to do it in this order, but they'll start with one of those, and then when they finish one, they'll start the other, if that makes sense, because it allows me to rotate. And while they do that, usually my little kids will like play, or I might have like an activity for them, geography. And really while my big kids are doing their language arts packet, that's when I would be doing like sight word memory cards with my kindergartner, and I do a reading lesson with her. So, and then math, my kindergartner is actually going to start a math workbook, like very, very lightly. Math UC this year, so she'll do her little math book, which means my 3-year-old will just be in my lap or playing on the ground or doing a sensory bin or something. She'll be in there under my feet, probably bugging me or eating all of my food. So then all together we'll do geography, and then we'll all break into independent reading. And really I feel like independent reading time, that's where I could do my reading lesson with my little kids, with my kinder. So she could literally just go break, play for a few minutes, or do a math lesson and then just go play. So she would have like an hour of playtime there, if that makes sense, after math. And she could even do a handwriting lesson if she wanted to. And then geography, I'm not even going to do geography with her. She'll like see a little bit, but we won't do a formal lesson. And then, yeah, when everybody does that literature / independent reading time, that's when they'll each read, like the boys would read Anne of Green Gables. They're going to listen to that on audio. Gabby is reading The Hobbit, so she can either listen to it on audiobook from LibriVox, or she can read the book. Same thing for the boys. We'll have it either for audio where they listen, or a book that they can read. We have those already in our library. And then lunch, and then after lunch we'll do our natural history, and then during the tea time, which is like where we're learning about frogs, or science. So it's not something like, it's not natural history and science every day, it rotates. And then during tea time we will do our last little it's railway children for us, but you guys could do the All of a Kind family, and they'll work on their handicraft. So it's read aloud and handicraft that day. All right, I know that's a lot, but I really hope that helps and it gives you an overview of all the things, and it draws the parallels for you. Just let me know if you need anything else.